Okay, sorry.
Hey everyone. All right, Trisha, we are live and I'll deal with some stuff on the back end while you welcome all of our attendees.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so happy you're here. My name is Trisha Edwards. I'm a client success manager here at Teachstone for the South Central. So some of the clients I support are in states such as Texas, Nebraska, Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, Tennessee, just to name a few. And speaking of Texas, our wonderful presenters are from the state of Texas, but I will move forward with introducing them here in just a little bit. Again, welcome everyone. Just a few housekeeping things to go over before we dive in and get started. First and foremost, this presentation is being recorded, and everyone attending today will get an email tomorrow that includes the slides to this presentation and the recording as well, and more. So no worries there. Also, we encourage you to use the chat box during this presentation to interact with one another. Put your thoughts into that chat box if you would like. And also, we also have a Q&A box, and this box will be used to please submit any questions or private conversations that you would like to have. So please use that. I see so many folks right now saying where they're from. Let me take a look here. Oh my goodness, we have California, Virginia, Michigan. Wow.
Guam.
We have yeah, Hopewell,
Wow.
Virginia. Let's see, Guam. Wow, Vermont, Alaska, Florida. This is fantastic. Hello from Miami. Hi, Sophie. Louisiana, Nebraska, Arizona. Wow. Thank you everyone for sharing where you're from. This is great. Kansas. Hi, Nikki in Indiana. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much. This is great insight into where everyone is joining. And for those of you in Florida, we hope that all is well down there as Debbie is barreling through. So I hope everyone is staying safe. Okay, so with those housekeeping items, again, use the chat box to interact with everyone, and the Q&A box for submissions for private questions, please. Before we dive in, we're going to launch a little poll here, and we would love to know what your role is at your current organization that you're with. And while everyone is submitting those answers, I'll tell you a little bit more about myself. As I was reading out where everybody is from, I am actually from Virginia. I currently reside near Charlottesville, Virginia. Before moving to this area, I grew up in a very small town in Virginia, and I was actually a teacher for the pre-K age level for about 14 years. And remembering someone's from Hopewell, I was a teacher at the lab school at Virginia Tech for a while. And then again, moved to the Charlottesville area and taught at a little private preschool for about 8 years before joining the wonderful Team Teachstone. So again, we're also happy you're here. And let's see what we've got going on with the poll. Okay, looks like we have quite a bit of educators here, which is wonderful. Instructional leaders. Looks like our biggest majority are site leaders, which is wonderful. Okay, I think. All right, I think our answers are we about done here, Megan? Do you think? Let me pull you back in.
Yeah, I think we're good. Thanks all.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so now I am very happy to introduce our wonderful presenters. We have Dylan Farmer and Don Levy. They are both with Southern Methodist University located in Texas, and we're so grateful and happy to have them here. So now I'm going to turn it over to Don and Dylan. Take us away.
Thanks, Trisha. Hi, everyone. I'm Dylan. Dawn and I are going to share the webinar today. I'm going to talk for a little bit, and then Dawn will talk, and then we'll kind of go back and forth, sharing responsibilities there. If you were at Interact in San Diego in April, this presentation is going to be very similar to that one. If you happen to see our session, be curious in the chat if anybody was there. Um, uh, but we're happy to be here today, and we're happy to share this with all of you. We hope it's informative. I'll introduce myself really quickly and turn it over to Dawn, and then we'll get going. My name is Dylan Farmer. I'm the assistant director at CORE at SMU. This is the Center on Research and Evaluation. We are based in Dallas, Texas, and all of the work that we do is we provide evaluation and research and consultation support services to educators. So that includes school districts, child care centers, nonprofit organizations, philanthropies. And all of our work is in an effort to like improve impacts in education broadly. And a big chunk of our work over the last almost 10 years has been helping organizations implement class. And so one of those is Dallas ISD, and that's what we're going to talk about today, that transition to second edition. Dawn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Dawn Levy, also working at Center on Research and Evaluation at Southern Methodist University. I'm an evaluation coordinator. I am the main coordinator for the Dallas ISD project, as well as partnerships with regions, education research, education, what am I saying? Region service centers, sorry, and Head Start centers and a couple of other partners in and around Dallas. But seeing as Dallas is our biggest partner, we are focusing on them today.
Thanks, Dawn. All right. Thank you. So what we're going to talk about today is I'm just going to give a really brief background of our partnership, specifically with Dallas ISD. A lot of the descriptors I'm going to use to describe this work that we do with Dallas ISD really threads across all of our research partnerships, specifically our class ones. This was our like inaugural and kind of flagship class partnership. And because of this, we've spun off into a lot of others of various sizes and scales of implementation. And that's across Head Start, childcare, and public school. But we're going to use Dallas ISD as an example today. We're going to spend most of our time, of course, talking about what the transition to second edition looked like. We're going to talk about that from 4 perspectives, and we'll say a little bit more about that in just a second. And then a little bit at the end to wrap up and going forward, we're just going to share a few other things that we're learning and exploring, just some interesting information that all of you I know as enthusiasts of class will be interested to hear. As we're going, go ahead and go to the next slide. As we're going through, just really quickly, we're curious if you can put in the chat if where you're at with second edition. Are you, as an organization, are you personally, whatever your role is in it, is it something that your organization is just kind of thinking about right now? Is it something you're in the process of doing, transitioning to second edition? Is it something you've already done? Just curious, like kind of who we have. And we'll come back to that a little bit later during the discussion. So thank you for putting in your answers, and we'll kind of keep track of those and see where we're at in just a little bit. So really quickly, this work started in fall of 2015, started with a phone call. At SMU, we have some deep ties and partnerships with Dallas ISD across the board, across all subject areas. Implementation, research, programming, college access, kind of runs the spectrum of early childhood to college in various areas of where we've partnered with them over the years. So we have good relationships and great colleagues there. And again, it started with a phone call. They were getting ready to launch into implementing class full scale, pre-K through second grade in the district, and knew that we had the ability to provide data collection and data analysis support, and were curious if that was something that we could do. They really did not want to put the effort of doing all of the observations and data collection onto the workloads of their instructional coaches. They wanted them to be able to focus on coaching. So they asked if we could help them out. And it's been going ever since. So we're very highly structured. We have very clearly defined roles. There are multiple forms of governance of this partnership. So we have, service contracts and MOUs and data sharing agreements and research agreements that kind of give us all of the permissions to do all of the different things that we're collaborating on. We've always made sure that the relationship is mutually beneficial. It helps SMU in that we're able to serve our community more broadly and kind of provide outreach and use our skills in research and evaluation to help organizations in the community. And of course, it provides a service that the district is needing. There are, again, clearly defined roles. I talked about this a little bit a second ago. We collect the data, we provide insights to guide district decision making, and then Dallas ISD uses the data for continuous quality improvement. We have an average of around 1,350 observations per semester, pre-K through third grade. And we transitioned to using class second edition, not only in Dallas ISD, but other organizations that we work with as well in fall of 22. So as soon as it was available, we made that transition. Real quick, and then I'm going to kick it over to Dawn. A lot of people ask why, I'm going to go ahead and say it now. A lot of people ask why we transitioned so quickly. And I think for us, we honestly never really had a great answer other than like, we just, it was there and we were like, we're going to do it. It was never even really a question for us. And we were kind of thinking about why maybe that was. And I think just from our perspectives, like being more in the research and evaluation space, new versions of tools come out all the time, whether it's a student assessment or an observation tool or a survey. And from our perspectives, it's just generally best practice in measurement that if there is a new version of a tool available, to adopt it. That new version was put out for good reasons. Typically, it means improvements in a variety of ways. And so in an effort to always be getting the best possible data that we can get in terms of accuracy and reliability, when those new versions of tools come out, we go with them. And so that's why we just made the transition so quickly, really without even debating it, to be honest. And we can talk more about that if there are questions about that. I'm going to kick it over to Dawn. Go to the next slide.
Great. Hi, everybody. So just a little bit, Dylan said that we are going to talk about the transition to class second edition from 4 perspectives, and these are them: the SMU coordination team, the SMU class observers, how Dallas ISD, of course, was involved. We won't talk much about other partners here, and then how we transitioned at the core of research and evaluation. You can fast forward when you're ready. Thank you. Get this out of the way. Okay, so as Dylan said, the main reason we transitioned was because it was available. We anticipated improvements. We worked closely with the Dallas ISD early learning team, and they were very much eager to move to class second edition. So that is what we did. And we worked really closely with them to make sure that both sides of or both teams within the big team were on board together to make the transition across all areas. Also at that time in the fall of 2022, the Dallas ISD early learning specialists, their focus was shifting from, there were pre-K specialists in all pre-K classrooms, and over the years they have gotten more all the way up to third grade. But in the fall of 2022, the pre-K specialists became more focused on the kindergarten through second grade as well. And the K through 3 specialists shifted some of their focus over to the reading academies. And for people that aren't in Texas, just to let you know what that is, that was part of a House Bill 3 that was passed in 2019 that required all kindergarten through third grade teachers to go through this reading academy to work on literacy achievement. And so that was a huge push within the district, and a lot of the specialist time kicked over to that at that time. But as Dylan says, keeping up with the current educational research, a new tool comes, we adopted it without really questioning it. So 2 years ago also, I mean, I think it's always been a push in Dallas ISD, but it was very prominent at the time that the district was really focusing on racial equity and social emotional learning. And a lot of the changes within class second edition also have to do with these matters. So the timing was just a natural decision to go ahead and move. And of course it took some effort, as does any change, but it was nothing that we ever regretted. We can go ahead when you're ready. Thank you. So as far as the SMU core leadership team coordinating, changing to class second edition, we went through and updated all the templates that we use. What am I saying? Hold on. Let me back up here. Yeah, that's right. So templates that we use for classroom level reports, and then our like our cumulative reports all had to be changed, of course, to reflect the new language in class second edition, like from teacher sensitivity to educator sensitivity, regard for student perspective to regard for child perspective. And we had to set up the class second edition trainings, which was really no big deal in that we've always worked with Teachstone to provide our trainings for the most part. And as far as the observers went, some of their feedback, they'll get to this a little bit more in a minute. For the new observers, it made no difference to them. It was all new, but they had a good training, and we could all provide, you know, some extra support where needed. And that was an easy change. And as far as setting up those trainings, it used to be that we would set up the pre-K training and the K-3 training. And this was really nice that it was only one training. So only one like number of days to be full on learning about it. But really, it also alleviated a lot of pressure from having the pre-K test and the K-3 test to just having the one test. And also it reduced some of the costs too, just by having the one training. We worked with Dallas ISD Early Learning Department, like I said, to update the classroom level reports and then our cumulative reports. And then we also transitioned all our materials to the class second edition, materials, field guides, score books and stuff. Ready when you are. Great, thank you. Okay, and so this is a sample of what our classroom level reports look like. I believe Dylan designed these several years ago. We've always gotten good feedback that these really show what is class and how is each individual teacher doing. The teachers get these back within like 7 to 10 days of their classroom observation. So just here is just showing you what that looks like in the updated terminology. We forward, please. Thank you. And this is the second page of the report. This is just showing some fall scores, how the teacher did in each domain, and then in each dimension, and as compared to the quality threshold. So all teachers, as long as we're doing a fall and spring, or sometimes we have a fall, spring, and end of year observation, all those scores will be reported on. Every teacher and their principal or whoever we're instructed to send those to gets those. All right, we can move on, please. Great, thank you. Okay, then so as far as from the observers, whatever, how the observers looked at the training or their new training that they got, like I said, all the new people got the second edition class training, or all the new observers, should I say. We also did that training, and then the early learning managers at DISD and some of our other partners sat in on this training. And it was really beneficial to go through all of that and hear step by step what the new focuses were, and to dive into some of the changes so we could really understand what they were and why they were. And then the core veteran observers did the Teachstone crosswalk training. That was, I can't remember exactly how long it was, but a couple of hours. I don't know if y'all have seen this, but there's a really nice, it was a PDF at the time. I don't know if there's a hard copy now, showing exactly like by dimension, domain, dimension, behavior marker, what has changed, like improved, what they dropped and what they added. Just showing like some of the language shifts and the diving in on looking at some of the how these changes enhanced utilizing the tool to look at diversity. And it also really helped to increase the consistency of scoring across observers because of how it is easier to use, and the descriptions for scoring at the, that are included in each dimension within the field guide. Just one that I wanted to point out of things that have changed in case some people haven't really looked at that, like in positive climate, it went from positive affect being one of the behavioral markers to enjoyment, which is, to me, just a little bit easier to grasp onto. And then also within that, it used to say, the observers are looking for a warm, calm voice. And now it just says a warm voice, because as all of you know, if you're up there teaching, you may not be that calm, but it doesn't mean you're not warm, and it's not a nice environment for children. Okay, and then the next fall, the new hire still did the 3-day training, of course, and we dove in a little bit and did a little bit of training on our own with a veteran observer. Like some of our observers who are probably on this webinar have been with us 7, 8, 9 years, really know it like the back of their hand. And we have one in particular who really dove in, and then she provided an extra, I don't remember, hour or two training for us to just focus on regard for child perspective and instructional support, which, as you know, instructional support is usually the most challenging area to score. And so really diving in, so we made sure that we were all scoring as well as we could according to exactly what the tool said. And then going forward, we still do the Teach Down trainings, and we'll keep up with those as those change and are offered. Okay, we can move on when you're ready. Okay, and so here is a nice testimonial from one of our veteran observers. She said the 2nd edition field guide has extremely helpful scoring notes at the end of each dimension, and I feel my scoring has been easier and more accurate due to the clarification in these scoring notes. And then I gotta move us out of the way here. Sorry. Okay, also more feedback from other observers. The emphasis on nonverbal as in offers verbal or nonverbal assistance that's in scaffolding under quality of feedback really helped with scoring. And that is something that we have all kind of noted, that, as you all know, the differences that children have when they show up to the classroom may or may not be able to provide much verbal. We may not be able to sometimes the better way of getting the message to the kid is maybe nonverbal, pointing, showing whatever. And so that being included was a big help. And I can't think under pressure under which dimension it is that also includes children being able to respond as they are able, which is it's changed the language somewhat from original, but like I said, I don't have that on the tip of my tongue. I apologize. So just going on a little bit more with the testimonials, somebody said giving more credit for cultural differences and for nonverbal expression and numerous dimensions and indicators provides for better bias recognition and avoidance, better examples and most of the long indicator descriptions in the field guide. That's somebody else said that. That's a running theme. Updated language in the class 2nd edition has been very helpful. For one example, on concept development under integration in class 2008, it said integrates with prior knowledge. Class 2nd edition says elicits prior knowledge and builds on previous experience. And this clarification has expanded integration as an indicator, which raises scores in concept development and gives credit for excellent higher level instruction to educators. And I just want to add to that, that we understand you're not just looking for higher scores, you're looking at the teacher-child interaction. And so the point here of getting higher scores is not, oh yeah, I have a higher score that's, I can show my principal or whatever. It's saying that they're a better that what is happening in the classroom with the teacher-child interactions is now easier to note within the class tool. And then the teacher gets credit for stuff that sometimes it was definitely happening before, but as long as you were sticking to the tool, there may not have been a place to acknowledge those behaviors. All right, ready when you are. Okay, more feedback. Language modeling, open-ended prompts receives higher scores with the change in indicators from questions require more than a one-word response. Oh, here it is. To children communicate as able. And that is one sort of was applauded across our team. There are many other indicators in all dimensions which help you to score more accurately. The emphasis on nonverbal, as in offers verbal or nonverbal assistance, definitely enhances scaffolding scores under quality of feedback. Ultimately, this has resulted in higher scores. I think that might have been duplicated. Anyway, the point is made, hopefully, from the observers' testimonials that they feel that what they are seeing in the classroom can now better be documented within the class tool. And that's why some scores are going up, is because they have better opportunity to note it. Not because it's just an easier tool or anything. All right, Dylan?
Yeah, thanks, Dawn.
Mhm.
So echoing off of what Dawn was saying, we're seeing, you know, the observers themselves feel like they're able to score more accurately with, especially with the new field guides and the new notes and the guides to assign scores. We're also seeing this show up in the numbers. So we're seeing better rater agreement with second edition. Our analyses looking at rater agreement and scoring trends, again, reflect the quotes and the feedback that we've received from our observers. Something that we do pretty systematically in all of our work with class is we ensure that we are always blindly double coding classrooms throughout the program year. And so depending on the size of an organization, we will choose kind of randomly between 5 to 10% of classrooms within the organization, and we will send 2 observers out at the same time to observe that classroom simultaneously, but blind to each other. And we use that data, we kind of keep it on hand, and we use it throughout the year for a lot of reasons. One, to just assess observer drift and make sure that our observers are kind of staying on track with each other and on track with the tool and staying reliable. But then we also use it for this work, this more kind of summative work, to look and see how inter-rater agreement is going broadly. Next slide, please. So we do 2 different approaches to this. One of them is very straightforward, and I'll talk about that in a second. The other one's a little more technical, that being the intra-class correlations. I won't talk about this too much, but this is essentially a more robust approach to measuring inter-rater agreement. It measures how much raters agree with each other. So when comparing second edition to class 2008, we get excellent rater agreement with second edition. It was great. It was still good with class 2008, but it's better, especially in classroom organization and instructional support, than in 2008. And this is kind of our most reliable, methodologically sound approach to getting this result. It's kind of hard to debunk. And so again, the threshold on this, you can think of it like a correlation coefficient where 0 is completely no relationship and 1 is a perfect relationship, and you want high numbers as close to 1 as possible. With this logic, anything over a 0.75 or greater is excellent. And our instructional support, as an example, our coefficient is 0.82, which is almost a perfect relationship of agreement, which is really, really strong. So we were excited to see that. A second approach that we take that I know a lot of you are going to be able to resonate with is this rate of agreement within 1 point, right? This is the same logic that's used in the reliability and certification assessments that observers have to pass to be able to become a certified class observer. You have to get within 1 point of a master code. So this is something else that we do, is we look to just see across the board when we have 2 raters rating with each other, how often are they within 1 point of each other? 1 point or less. They either agree perfectly or they're off by only 1. And we see how often this occurs. You can see at the table along the bottom, in fall of 2019, so that first row, that was class 2008. It was good. 95% of the time in emotional support, our raters agreed within 1 point. classroom organization and instructional support, it was 94% of the time. That's really encouraging. But you can see in fall 2023, when we were implementing second edition, it's almost perfect. So 100% of the time in emotional support and instructional support, our raters are agreeing within 1 point of each other, and it's 97% within classroom organization. And there's a couple dimension areas. So positive climate as an example, and behavior management, each went up 7 percentage points and 5 percentage points respectively. So that's great news. Just I don't really have much else to say about that. Again, the rater agreement's almost perfect, and it was good. It was good before, it's excellent now. So that's encouraging. And again, it reflects what our observers have been saying about their feedback on the tool. Next slide, please. Dawn was mentioning this as well. We're seeing some overall improvement in class scores as well. If you look at this graph, kind of between spring of 2019 and spring of 22 is when we implemented second edition. And you can see the top two lines, emotional support and classroom organization. In the years prior to that, we had kind of hit a little bit of a plateau. We just were not across the board. There were individual classrooms where they were seeing great growth, but on average across the board, things were kind of leveled out, and we weren't able to kind of get over this hump. And since implementing second edition, we have seen a bit of a good uptick in scores. And we think that there's a lot of things at play there. Obviously, there's always instructional coaches working with teachers to improve. But qualitatively, our raters, again, said that they feel they're better equipped to give more accurate scores. And in some cases, that means giving a slightly higher score than they would have given before. But again, they feel like that's more reflective of what they're actually seeing. And we're seeing that show up in the data in some really slight ways as well. So the takeaway here is across the board, both like qualitative takeaway from our observers, and then looking at the numbers, we're seeing all of these things shake out where we're just getting more accurate scores that are just giving this slight uptick in the reliability and the quality of the scores that we're getting. Next slide, Dawn.
Sorry. Okay, so back to actually the nuts and bolts of making the transition. So this is focusing on the Dallas ISD early learning team. They did the crosswalk training. They did the transition training. They worked with their specialist to align their coaching pathways with the class second edition. And the specialist also did the crosswalk training. They had to certify in class second edition. Their monthly PDs included some class coaching, looking at their pathways and how it aligned with class second edition. Can we move on, please? And then we're just going to touch on this briefly, that this is the coaching framework that Dallas ISD has utilized to look at like scoping out their month by month, what their pre-K instructional focus is, a pre-K coaching implementation guide, and then how it aligns with class, and then some of their coaching support focus. And that's just the pre-K one, but same for K2.
All right, thanks, Dawn. So to wrap us up, so that's the transition. So again, we talked about it from the perspective of us as sort of managing a team of observers. We talked about it from the observer's perspective, and from the teacher's perspective, and then from the district itself. So just to kind of shift for a little bit, and then we'll take some Q&A and have some discussion. This really isn't related to second edition, but it's kind of a preview of what's to come with some things related to second edition. So we are, as a research center, we're always kind of asking the big questions of like, what if and why, right? Like And the number one question that we get from stakeholders related to class is like, well, why are we doing this? What does it mean? And so I know this audience, you're always eager to see this kind of information and share it. And so we thought it would be fun to share just a little bit of the work that we do looking at student outcomes. I'm going to share highlights just from 2 studies that we've done. This is looking at class 2008, so the original, but all of this work that we've done with 2008, we're doing now with 2nd edition, and we're working with Teachstone to kind of release those findings in the future. And so look out for those. But we've found with class 2008, just in our work personally, that we've done kind of 2 different approaches, and all of these are longitudinal. So this first one, the first like kind of plus sign you see there, we did a study and we found we're looking at kids at the end of 1st grade and their track prior to that. And we found that kids that are in high quality pre-K classrooms, kindergarten and 1st grade classrooms as measured by class were 80% likely to read on grade level by the end of 1st grade, compared to only 28% of kids who are on track at the end of 1st grade if they were not in pre-K and then in a low quality kinder in 1st grade. This demonstrates the validity of class as a measure of quality classroom interactions that lead to positive outcomes for students. Those numbers are huge. Again, so if you're in kind of a great quality environment as measured by class, pre-K through 1st, 80% likely to read on grade level by the end of 1st. If you're in the opposite scenario, only 28%. Big differences there. A second study that we've done is different approach, but we looked at 2nd grade at the end of 2nd grade, and we were curious about what impact the pre-K classroom had on students at the end of 2nd grade. And so we found that the quality of the pre-K classroom continues to have a really meaningful impact on student achievement through 2nd grade. That was reading and math. And that is true even when kind of accounting for and like kind of silencing the effect of quality in kinder 1st and 2nd grade. So all that to say, we took everything into account, the quality of the classrooms, the teachers, their peers, factors about the students. And when you take all of those things into account that influence student outcomes over the years, and we canceled out everything. We canceled out the effect of everything except for the classroom quality in pre-K. We found that pre-K classroom still has that really meaningful impact through 2nd grade, which tells us a lot, again, as we all know, about the importance of the quality in these early childhood classrooms. So we like to share this work. Again, we're working on these same analyses, looking at 2nd edition now, and again, working with Teachstone to get those released as soon as we can. But I think that wraps us up on the presentation. Do we have any? Is that right? Waiting on Trisha or somebody to come back in. So we've got some time. We've got about 20 minutes. Thank you. As I said, if you were at Interact, this was a 30-minute presentation at Interact. And so we told our friends at Teachstone that we would stretch it out a little bit, but with the idea that we knew we would have some time left at the end for questions. And so let's do some Q&A. Trisha, I'm going to let you facilitate if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Okay. So one of the first questions that we've received is there data on how consistent indicator level information is in agreement?
Indicator, no. So great question. And it's a question that Teachstone has too, and we're working on it. I don't have the data now. It's something that we actually just had this conversation internally on Friday last week. So we have indicator level data. We keep it like our observers mark it. We don't enter it into our data sets, but we have it like in filing cabinets. And so there's a big appetite for indicator level data for a lot of different reasons. And so we are probably in 2025 going to work through a project where we sort of unarchive a bunch of scoring sheets from prior years and enter all of that indicator data so that we can start asking and answering these questions, because they're coming at us in pretty rapid fire. So we have the data, we just got to get it into a format we can actually analyze. So it's coming.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dawn and Dylan. Okay, we've got a few more questions. We have someone that is wanting to know what is the percentage of impacts for children up to 2nd grade. Do you have any data on that?
percentage of?
What are the percentage, like, essentially, do you know how many children are impacted up to second grade? And Megan, this may be a broader question for us.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Sorry.
She says, what
I
are the
can-
I think Daisley's asking, because you have up to first grade on the previous slide about class 2008 impacts. And I believe Daisley, please,
Oh.
put in the chat, you can expand on your question, but I think that that's what that's in reference to.
Chat. So the second study that we did looked at second grade. So I guess we don't have that same approach where we look to see, the differences, like just the kind of stark differences between kids on that high quality trajectory versus a low quality trajectory and what they look like at the end of second grade. But the second grade analyses that we do have was looking at the impact of pre-K through second grade. So the short answer is yes, we have that. I don't have it off the top of my head or handy. But it's something if someone, are they going to have our email addresses? If someone wants to email me offhand, we can talk about that. I just can't.
Yeah, Isabella, can you skip
top of my
forward
head.
2 slides and we can have Dawn and Dylan's email addresses up on the screen.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Our next question, which is a great question. Amanda says that she's been a teacher for 7 years, but she's now an admin. And she's wondering what the role is of an admin supervisor when it comes to class and implementing it. She says she's feeling like a fish out of water, but she wanted to be as informed and supportive as possible. Do you have any feedback on that, Dawn or Dylan?
I would say if you're going to adopt it, of course, do the training along with your observers and teachers to know as much as possible, because we have sometimes seen when teachers get their feedback, of course, they would like to go over it with their supervisors. And it's just helpful if everybody knows what they're talking about, but also just for teacher buy-in. I think I think that went away. I'm not sure if I think you said, oh, you're admin. There's more buy-in we have seen when the administration has full buy-in, and then it's an initiative done by everybody, not so much as teachers being told that this is going to kind of happen to them. It's a full-on initiative. The administration knows what class is all about and can really talk through it with their staff. That's my thinking.
Yeah, and I just want to add a little bit more. In having the experience as a teacher versus now working at Team Teachstone, I will say that my experience with it, Amanda, was I just had folks coming in and observing. And I didn't know what they were there for. And it was, a little confusing at times. And I wanted to learn more about the tool. And so in just saying that piece right there, I think that a lot of people focus, which it is important, at that admin level, you need to understand the tool as well, obviously. I think it's important to get trained to start off. One thing that I will say really opened my eyes to the tool was, first and foremost, becoming an observer and sitting through the observation training. That helped me really internalize what this tool encompasses. And it also really opened my eyes to how important and impactful this tool is. And so once you and your the rest, anybody else that is at that level as you are as an admin or a supervisor or a coach, even over teachers, once you all have that deep understanding of the tool and you want to move forward with, as Dawn mentioned, that buy-in from teachers, I think it's really important for them to understand that this is not just one more thing. And I phrase it like that because there's a lot, of things that teachers have to accomplish and do. And there's a certain amount of PD that's required every year. And, as we all know, you're trying to maintain your classroom and all the aspects and challenges that come with your day to day. And so it's also very important that your teachers are trained in the tool as well. And sometimes that gets a bit overlooked because there's so much data that's being analyzed. But it's very important that your teachers have that PD and that understanding of the class tool as well. Sorry if I rambled a little bit, but I hope that was helpful, Amanda. All right. Next we have how has teacher capacity / experience influenced these scores?
That's a good question. What we have found is that teacher experience, just straight up number of years teaching in their current broadly, has no straight up effect. However, we have found that teacher consistency within a grade level matters a lot. So when we look at teachers that have been in the same grade level as we add a year, literally the quality goes up. So if we have groups of teachers, they've been in the same grade level for 2 years versus 3 years versus 4 years versus 5 years. Every time we have a new grouping, the quality improves. And so consistency in grade level is really important from what we found. And we've also looked at this from the perspective of coaching. And so that's where I say we haven't really found anything, just years of experience alone itself doesn't really matter, but years of experience while receiving explicit support around class matters a lot. It's kind of just it's the most consistent finding I think that we found year over year, is that quality is better for teachers that have been in sustained environments receiving that instruction or that support from a coach or from a structured PD apparatus. So that matters a lot. I think teacher capacity, I'm not sure what we are saying specifically there in terms of teacher capacity mattering, but I'll leave it at that. If you want to elaborate on what you mean by capacity, I can maybe answer that.
Thank you, Dawn. I want to skip forward to a question that we just got in a few minutes ago that says, are you currently using class environment on top of transitioning to second edition?
We aren't using class environment. We've had, I don't know enough about it, honestly. I don't know. I don't know a lot about class environment to be able to answer much questions about it at all. But we are not using it. I think some organizations that we work with have explored it, but are just kind of focusing on just class right now, the traditional tool.
And Daisley also asked in, how many children are at above grade level as a result of participating in high quality pre-K? As far as if you have any data on that, Dawn or Dylan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have again, I think there's a lot of ways to answer that question.
Right.
I think that the slide that we shared kind of towards the end was a good example of that. That was at the end of first grade. It was 80% of kids were on grade level at the end of first grade, having been in a high quality pre-K classroom, compared to just 28% of kids who were not. Again, that was at the end of first grade. If you want kindergarten readiness specific scores, again, I don't have those ready to go right now, but Daisley, if you want to email me some of these questions, I can maybe help pull some numbers more specifically for you. Yeah, it's hard. I can't give exact answers immediately. No.
Thank you, Dylan. I do see a message from Amanda in the chat box asking about, she was the person asking about, she's new as an admin. And Amanda, to answer your question on how to get the ball rolling, I do want to emphasize that, the information that Dawn and Dylan are sharing now is, they've been doing this work for 4 years. And Dallas ISD has been a partner with Teachstone, I want to say we're going on year 10 now. And so this level of observing and, you know, this data, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that your idea of having everyone as a united front, yes, absolutely, for sure. But Megan, I'm glad you jumped back on and shared your screen. If you could mention, I believe what is going to be sent out either before the webinar ends or right after, I think that would be great for Amanda to be able to get in touch with someone here to have a little bit deeper discussion.
I was just messaging with Isabel on the back end and I was like, oh, let me get this poll up because we have, I know that we anticipated there would probably be a lot of questions like yours, Amanda. So if you have questions about second edition, about transition, about how do I do that, feel free to let us know if you prefer to be contacted by phone or by email or just maybe not at this time. But we'll get this over to our Teachstone reps who like Trisha have a certain territory. They're probably going to be more familiar with your QRAS, with your funding streams, what, you know, where your state might be in the process, X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of factors. And so we have a lot of folks who are ready to talk to you and can support your transition or even just answer questions if you're not ready and just have a million questions about what is second edition, what does this look like. We're happy to follow up that way. So thank you so much. That was a great question, Amanda. And I think that actually was a great segue to this. And I know we have 8 minutes. We have 7 questions, quite a few more questions coming through. So we'll try to answer a few more of them in maybe like a rapid fire format so that we can get to them. And if you have more questions, you know, send those out and then we can send the questions to Dawn and Dylan directly. And like I said, we'll send out the recording, we'll send out the slides afterward, and some of the other things. So, Diane, I see your comment. So I'll follow up with you directly, Diane, because I see you here.
Dawn, can you see the Q&A?
Yes.
Open. Okay, so I don't mind, Trisha, if you're cool with it. I'm happy to just kind of roll through some stuff because I've seen some stuff in chat too. I saw one correlation between instructional support and the student state assessment. So I wonder if you're asking about STAR in Texas specifically. We will have that. Should have that at the end of this year. We lost our cohort of kids that we had been tracking with COVID. They were in 3rd grade in the 1920 school year. So we did not get those STAR results from them. And so we kind of had to start over a little bit. So we're working on it. The answer is, please shoot me an email if you don't mind. That way I've got your contact information and we should have those results sometime over the next year for sure. We have a new analyst on board and he's ready to hit the ground running with these things. And so we will have those results very soon. And I'm happy to share as soon as everything's kind of finished and blessed and ready to go. Let's see. I saw one around, data on our partners. If teachers are trained on class, do they have higher scores? Yes. I think that was again, that's the most consistent and overwhelming result that we get, period. No matter which way you slice it, like, again, consistency in grade level, receiving that same instructional coaching year over year. The more intense, the more the higher amount, no matter which way, again, no matter how you slice it on PD and training and coaching around class, it all leads to higher scores. It's the most consistent relationship that we have seen in terms of, again, just validating this tool that it is something that is responsive to intervention. We look at student assessments the same way, right? Like, we believe that if students receive instruction, they should improve on assessments. We want to see the same thing with classrooms, and we've seen that time again with class. Dawn, there's one I want to kick to you in just a second. What was the impact on coaches with the new tool? But let me see if I can okay. There's some of these for Teachstone. People want prices. Dawn, do you
want me to answer that one?
Talk about the one impact on coaches with the new tool?
Yeah, I think my answer is that I don't think we can answer that question. That's more of a question for the partner.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think again, Dawn talked about this a little bit. I mean, I think it was hard for them because they had so much going on also at the same time. But in general, I think the structure of the tool is like 99% the same. Again, there are some minor changes in wording and like, regard for student perspectives is now regard for child perspectives, right? Like that's very, very minor, but the overall structure and approach to the tool is the same as it's always been. The big changes are in the language that describes the indicators and the dimensions, which really just gives a lot more clarity. And so I think if anything, I would expect that coaches would probably say a lot of the same things that our observers said because they're using kind of a flip side of the same coin and really operationalizing like what the indicators mean and how to put words to them and put action to them. And again, the descriptors are just so much more clear and updated and current that it's, I think, easier for those that are really using those manuals that class provides, whether again that's in an observation perspective or in a coaching perspective, but using that language for improvement. It's just better language to use in having those conversations broadly. So I would think that coaches would have the same response because again, from a workload perspective, it wasn't a big change for them. They had to kind of go through some transition training and that's it. Otherwise, they hit the ground running as they always had been. There wasn't a big learning curve that was necessary. Let's see. I think I don't want to have a big pause, but I'm trying to read a couple of these without stopping for too long.
That's okay. I actually have one more slide that I'm going to sneak in the last 3 minutes while you're
Yeah.
reading through those. So we can actually go back a slide. I saw another comment in the chat a while back about are there other webinars coming up? So we do have an educator workshop series next week. So this is more for the educators in your program who are looking for specific PD on like things like behavior management or dealing with challenging behaviors, literacy scores, and what kinds of interactions can support those. A couple of different interaction support ones. We have some on 12 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Eastern throughout the week next week, and they are $50 a person. So I'll drop in the link to that in just a second. And then the week right after that is our Observer Workshop Series, which is very similar. It's $50 a person and covers a wide range of topics on things like if this is your first time observing with a class tool, what do you do? What does that first observation look like to prepare you? A lot of tips for misunderstood indicators in each of the different class domains and tips for note taking. So I will drop a link to that if you are interested or have educators that you work with or observers that you work with. And then I'll drop that link and I'll pass it back over to you, Dylan, for any last minute Q&A that we want to address real quick.
I have one too, Dylan,
Yeah, go for it, please.
or you can go first.
You're good. Go for it.
Okay, let me get back to the questions about the last one. I can see anyway. Can independent contractors, current observers register for the veteran transition training? I just want to clarify. I think I made up that name, veteran transition training. That's for like our veteran observers, just returning observers. So don't look for that online. Hopefully, Trisha and Megan can point you in the right direction for that.
Yes,
That would be
Carolyn.
the class second edition transition training. And I'll drop the link because this is where all of the trainings are. And you can filter by whichever, if you're looking for a first time class observer or if you're looking for the transition training. So you can find all of them at that link there.
The answer is yes, right? Independent
The
contractor.
answer is yes. The answer is yes. Carolyn, if you're a current observer and you're wanting to transition to the second edition tool, you'll want to attend, as Megan said, the class second edition transition training. I believe it's got a longer name, but you'll see when you click on the website link that Megan's provided.
Yeah, there was this question. Sorry, go ahead, Dawn.
Sorry, just real quick. Do plan ahead because some of the trainings that they book out a while.
Yes, thank you, Dawn. That is very
This
true.
question, we've only got a minute, but I think we can answer quick. This question around the teachers going through the training process. I think the more you can train the teachers, the better. I don't know if Teachstone has a perspective on that around whether it's good or bad for teachers to take the full observer training. But in our experience, like the more teachers know the tool, and I think that really intimate knowledge with the tool that comes from going through the observer training would be awesome for teachers. I think that like would answer. It would have given Dawn a lot less headaches, I would say that if teachers went through that training, from just a coordinator perspective, if teachers are really dialed in to what's going on and what they're being asked, what they're being observed on, and all those kinds of things, I think the more the better. I can't think of any good reason as to not do that other than
Well, and then they're trained in the child teacher interactions,
Yeah.
you know, not, which is the whole basis. I mean, that's the whole goal altogether, not just.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Trisha, for being our lovely host, and Dylan and Dawn for presenting everything. And thank you all to our attendees for joining us and spending an hour with us this afternoon. It's great having everyone. And like I said, we'll send out the recording. We dropped a ton of links in throughout the presentation, so we'll try to get a list of all of those things out to you in an email. And I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.